encourage you to be interactive here. Ask questions. Tell us we're wrong. Tell us we're right. Don't be afraid to get in our faces during the live stream here. Hey guys, let's jump into it. Let's talk about esports and gaming.
What we do here is we cover the most pressing gaming and esports topics and news of the week. But we look at all of it through a business and C-suite lens. We dissect, we analyze business implications of everything happening in this industry.
The live stream's getting bigger!
I know.
Make sure you go buy William's book, The Book of Esports, which it's killing it on Amazon as always. I think everyone has it by now, but if you don't, go buy it. And even if you do, maybe go buy a second copy, you know.
Nothing says I love my mom and dad like the Book of Esports.
And on the after show, we cover all the stuff that just didn't make it into the podcast. It's still just as good. It's just as interesting. It's maybe even better because we get to interact with you guys.
Ghost Runner, you know, I managed to fit that in with about the busiest week of work I've ever had. So anytime
priorities, right?
It's an anti-William is late device.
Very effective.
Don't count on it though.
Risky. Hot garbage. It's an indicator of bad money management. It's an indicator of immature management.
I have some hot takes.
For the vast majority of people who game, and look, if you look at just the gaming market, the dollar in revenue of the $137 billion global gaming market, 70 billion of that is mobile. 70 billion. For those guys, this is a revolution.
Listening. Thank you for tuning in every week. Thank you for leaving those 5-star ratings and reviews. We really appreciate it.
If I was Epic, I'd be hiring some of the best talent away from Facebook, not from other game developers. I actually think they should have a fire sale, right? Sell the company at rock bottom price because it's going to zero. And I think the natural, interesting acquirer would be Apple. And they would convert them to literally Apple arcades. We want people to funnel in. We want everyone in the audience ready to go and all hyped up. That's the idea. Julian says the live stream is the best by far.
And I, for one, welcome the fact that anything that gets you to stop playing Candy Crush is good for us as a whole.
The live stream!
William and I went on a bit of a tangent.
From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports podcast.
The fastest growing entertainment phenomenon of this generation.
Hi, Prophet of Esports, joined today by my friend and co-host William Collis.
Yeah, we got the Book of Esports out. It's a big deal.
So everyone knows me as the Prophet, William as the Professor. From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports after show live stream. I am Paul Dawalibi. I'm joined today by my friends and co-hosts Victoria Taylor, Lindsay Poss, William Collis, Jeff Cohen. As always, we've got the big cast here today. Lots of fun to be had for those of you who are new to the after show. What we do here is we cover everything that doesn't make it into the podcast. All still the news stories and topics from the gaming industry. We still dissect, we still analyze the business implications of everything happening. It's just all the stuff that we couldn't fit into that 1 hour podcast. And the best part about the after show, especially for those of you who are new here, is you get to interact with us, ask questions, challenge us, get in our faces, disagree, agree, however you want to participate. We encourage it. It makes it a lot more fun. And this is why we love doing it, because it includes you guys. How is everyone this week? This is better. I think. This is better. We get to see us up close and personal. I'm Wednesday with a smiley face. Yeah. William, what's going on?
I mean, I'm great. I'm just, I don't know. I'm busy, but I'm upbeat. I'm excited for our live stream tonight. I don't know, Paul, what do you want me to say?
Of course you're excited. You and Jeff are in the news this week, so I don't know.
That's right. Yeah, I guess.
An exciting week. Big week. It's the best day of the week. It's Wednesday. We do the live stream. It's great.
That's it. Greg says, welcome to the GME. Greg, we're going to get to it, I promise.
When we get there, I want to ask the audience how many people bought GameStop in the last few days. I'm very curious to see the overlap between our audience and, Reddit
All
trolls.
I ask is that we have a minute and a half GameStop free here at the top of the show. Chris says 4 more people and you got esports Hollywood Squares. Chris, I don't know. You're welcome to come if you want.
That's what I said last week. I said we should play Hollywood Squares.
That's it. Chris, I think I am also so over it, but we have to talk about it. I'm just saying now, we're going to start with it. We have to talk about it. It's literally 90% of the news in gaming right now. And so we are going to talk about it. I just want to say, this week is a little bit unusual, guys. Usually I tease what's coming on the podcast. I am the prophet, but I don't see into some futures. And what's interesting is we haven't taped the podcast yet, actually. We're taping it tomorrow because we have two huge guests on this week. So I will tease that. And the 2 huge guests we have are Ujesh Desai, who is the head of gaming at Logitech. So he manages their entire gaming division, which is super exciting. And working for him, Vincent Tucker, who manages all of their strategy and innovation. So huge guests tomorrow on the podcast. We will still try and get the episode out tomorrow, but I can't tease what we've talked about because we actually haven't recorded it yet. So it's coming, and I know it's going to be great because the guests are awesome.
Yeah, and honestly, this is all a giant excuse for Paul to talk about hardware. This is that's all he said to me is I just want to talk about hardware for 2 hours. And you can just be quiet the whole time.
William got a bit of a sneak peek because we did a sort of a pre-call with the Logitech sort of team. And it was me basically geeking out for half an hour over Logitech
Literally,
hardware.
he was holding up keyboards and be like, why doesn't this have a USB-C in it? And they were trying to answer and they're like, that's a great question. Let's walk through
they actually did have a good answer.
Yeah.
And I did ask why my keyboard didn't have USB-C. But anyways, so stay tuned for that tomorrow. Also, just a reminder, go buy William's book, The Book of Esports, and go buy some Business of Esports merch. And then, sorry, 2 last things to announce before we get into GameStop. I promise we're going to get to GameStop. We have a new TikTok account. Go follow us at Biz Esports. And I will be doing with William and Jeff starting this Friday. And actually, I haven't even talked to Victoria and Lindsay about it, but maybe they'll be joining us. I don't want to put pressure here publicly. We will be doing, Lindsay needs to get an iPhone. I know that. We will be doing a Friday, Future of Fun Fridays, hosted by the Business of Esports, every Friday on Clubhouse at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So you can drop in, talk about Business of Esports, talk about the live stream or the podcast that maybe you just listened to, whatever you want. It's going to be an hour where people can drop in on Clubhouse every Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern time, starting this week, guys. So this week we will be doing that. So if you're on Clubhouse, make sure to at least add me at esports profit, spelled like dollar profit. All right. Cam says, absolutely not. Been fun to watch though. So Cam did not buy any stock. Neil says, biggest news story of January. GMBL signs definitive with Helix and GG Circuit. Definitely bigger than the GameStop story, which is why we're also going to get to this, Neil. Actually, we are going to talk about it. And Martin says, the first pre-podcast live stream. I guess technically, yes. This is the first pre-podcast live stream. And the guests are awesome. I can't, look, again, we haven't recorded the episode, but we have done like a pre sort of thing with them. And I think it's going to be absolutely amazing. Francois Savox says, nice. And I agree. So, guys, we have to do this. I'm sorry for those of you who are fed up. I apologize in advance because I know it's been on everyone's timeline and then some. Look, I don't even need to bring up an article. I think most people are familiar. I will give a bit of the background here. But I'm pulling up, and hang on here. Let's do this. I'm going to pull up this article from the Detroit Free Press talking about GameStop stock goes wild on Wall Street, and we can't stop watching. Let me give the 2-second background unless one of you wants to summarize. Jeff, maybe you want to summarize.
You can summarize. You got it.
So the summary here is GameStop, as everyone knows, especially who's been following me in the business of esports, a company in decline, obviously, because the sales of physical games are in decline and online's eating everything. And so, I've been quite bearish on GameStop personally. The stock was trading at like $3 or something for a very long time. The business basically sort of going on a slow boat towards bankruptcy. And some very big hedge funds, one in particular, came out and announced that they had a very significant short position in GameStop and listed their reasons why, et cetera. And basically a short position, for those who don't know, I'm sure now everyone's a stock trading expert because everyone's got a Robinhood account now. Short position means they're betting, this hedge fund was betting that the stock would go down, not up. And if it goes down, they make money. And if it goes up, they lose money. And fundamentally, what ended up happening is some Redditors caught wind of this and wanted to stick it to this hedge fund, I think was the initial sort of impetus behind this, and started buying up the stock to raise the price and put on what's called a short squeeze. In other words, make the short seller, this hedge fund in particular, Citron, lose money. So this is some of the background. Now, it started sort of small. The stock went up to like 40 or 50 bucks and then 75 bucks. And then yesterday it closed at 2 something. And today, I don't know, anyone have sort of what the final closing price was?
I think it was well over 300.
Over 300 bucks.
Yeah, it was like 350.
350.
So in a matter of
Like an
days,
hour
the
ago.
stock has run up massively on all this hype born out of Reddit and initially out of this desire to call it screw these hedge funds. This is the background. I guess Jeff asked a good question. Have any of you personally sort of bought GameStop stock? Have any of you personally been involved in this?
No.
Nobody? Okay.
Yeah, I took out a second mortgage on my house, guys. I'm all in.
Right. Yeah.
William, you didn't buy any GameStop stock?
No, no. I try to avoid, generally purchasing gaming stocks too much, basically at all, right? Because, it's just one of those things where like you should be diversified away from things that you're involved in directly. But this was a pretty crazy story. You know what I mean? This is pretty unbelievable. And I want to, rather than like talk about like buying stock or not buying stock, I want to talk about just like the big lesson I took away from this, which almost has nothing to do with esports, but like, it's just how risky it is to short stocks. Like we forget about this, but when I was like early on in my life, I read, I think it's like a book by Peter Lynch, I want to say, is like Peter Lynch was a big money manager, right? And he had I think it was Peter Lynch who had some analogy about like he was shorting a golf course stock company or something like this because he was just so convinced that it could never work, but the stock kept going up and he kept on having to recover his short position. And at a certain point, like the losses just mounted so large, he just was like, I'm never going to short again. It's not worth it. And the reality is, I think a lot of what we're seeing today is the effect of short positions unwinding themselves in sequence. It's the short squeeze that you referenced. And this is why people, I think, forget this. When you buy a stock, right, your loss is capped. You can only lose the amount you bought the stock for. So if I paid $10 for a stock, I can lose $10. That's fine. If you short a stock, your loss is theoretically uncapped, right? Like if the stock goes to $1 billion trillion, you lose the difference between what you bought it at and what you shorted it at and $1 billion trillion. So it's an incredible, like inherently there's a lot, even though shorting, I think intellectually feels like just the opposite of buying, it's a totally different risk profile that you're exposed to. And I think a lot of what we're seeing today is the fact, like at least on sort of the money management side, is the fact that it's this reverse risk profile that's kicking in now.
Look, so we're going to get to, is this good for GameStop or not, right? Which is, I think, should be the meat of the discussion on this live stream, at least, because we want to talk about business implications for gaming companies specifically. So, you know, we can spend lots of time talking about, you know, the minutia here of market forces and retail investors versus hedge fund, right? Like we'll spend a little bit of time on that, but fundamentally the big question I have is this good for GameStop or not? Before we get to that, I just want to say, to William's point, Michael Burry, who is the founder of Scion Capital, very famously portrayed in the movie The Big Short, for those of you who have watched it, was one of the, his hedge fund was one of the few that was actually long GameStop, if you guys remember, in 2019. And he's actually come out and said, and he sold not at $300, he sold, I think, at, you know, $40 or $50 or something. Like he got out at some where he made a nice return for his fund. But even he is saying now, this is completely like he actually went so far to say that these Redditors should be prosecuted criminally. Like that was his position here. That this is pure, like sort of blatant stock manipulation at this point. So even a guy who's very sophisticated on the short side, he maybe again, you know, affected the most famous short of all time when he shorted mortgage-backed securities, is saying sort of this is nuts, and the people sort of doing this, the Redditors are sort of committing a criminal act here. The SEC has come out and said, you know, we don't know what to do with this because we can't go after them. But I want to focus fundamentally on, do we think this is good for GameStop or not? And Jeff, I'm curious to start with you here. What do you think in terms of implications here for GameStop?
Well, I mean, it's surely not bad, right? Anytime your market cap goes from less than 2 billion to 20 billion plus, I mean, you're not upset, right? Now, there's a couple ways they're going to have to capitalize on this. You know, first, I think they're going to have to raise capital, right? So I think at some elevated level, they're going to be able to sell some shares and take that cash in and then, you know, use it in some way to hopefully transform their business. That I think that's probably gonna be the meat of what we're going to start to talk about. But that's kind of the, you know, the one obvious thing. Because if you recall, you know, GameStop, if we were talking about GameStop 6 months ago, we probably would have been talking about how it was very likely to go out of business. Well, the reason things go out of business is usually because they have debt, right? Like you don't go bankrupt unless you can't fulfill your obligations.
Which they have.
So, yes. Yeah. So, you know, I think being able to raise cash, pay off their debt, pay a bunch of their leases, you know, maybe even buy back some of the real estate. There's a lot of different options you can do when you have the potential to raise a bunch of cash. So that's point number one, fairly obvious. Point number two, there's plenty of people out there that probably weren't aware of GameStop, didn't know GameStop still existed, didn't care about GameStop. Now it's kind of in the cultural zeitgeist, become sort of this meme. I wouldn't be shocked if that leads to a little bit of an uptick in people actually going to GameStop and then purchasing things. So in the short term, you know, that has the potential to maybe be a little bit of a bump. That's probably more short term than, you know, if they're able to raise cash and actually transform themselves a bit. So those are two positives. One negative, and I know, Paul, you and I talked about this earlier, you know, just with this influx of retail traders coming into the stock and kind of bidding it up to what is just an illogical level at this point, you're probably going to see a lot of their institutional shareholders selling out. You know, I think they had Fidelity in their page one. They have, you know, a bunch of long onlys, kind of the kind of good, stable shareholders that you as a management team really want to own your stock. Those people, I'm assuming, have sold at this point, or if not, they should get their head checked. So they will have sold probably very shortly. So who's left holding the bag are unstable, fast money, retail investors. That's not really who you want owning your stock. So they're going to have a real IR problem at some point down the line where they're going to have to rebuild that shareholder base. So it could be a little bit of a sugar high where it's good things in the near term and then kind of stuck holding the bag. But yeah.
So Gabe says GameStop to the moon, which encapsulates Gabe in one phrase, the Redditor's position here. Greg says, William's so right. This is not a gaming story, but the media has made it one. Absolutely, Greg. 100% agree. Like, there's not like the company hasn't fundamentally changed at all, right? Like, have announced nothing, have done nothing. Martin says, does GameStop actually benefit from this at all? Martin, we're going to talk about this, and I think Jeff made a couple good points in terms of how it does. Justin says, what's up, guys? Justin, welcome. Gabe says, I think GameStop is still screwed no matter what. I would be hard-pressed if anyone here disagreed with that statement. Like, I think we all agree. Howdy from Grapevine, Texas, says Justin. Justin, howdy. And Cam says, more Microsoft tablets. Every employee gets 2 tablets now. Cam, you should be the CEO at GameStop. I have not heard a better suggestion yet. Martin says they got new board members from Chewy too, right? They might know what to do with GameStop long-term digitally. Martin, I think that happened a while ago now. It's been at least 6 months or more.
Well, that was the beginning of what got the stock moving. Like, that was part of what got Michael Burry, so interested. So that was the move from like 5 to 15.
Although both of them, Michael Burry and now I'm forgetting the guy from Chewy's name.
Ryan Cohen, I think, or something.
Yeah, Ryan. Both wanted changes at the CEO level, interestingly enough. Like, they in fact, the letter that they penned in sort of their activist role was they felt management was ineffective. And I believe that was the exact word that they used. So, it's the same leadership even. They haven't even managed to change that. Look, the fundamentals are tough. Lindsay, I'm curious. Jeff brought something up that was interesting, which is just being in the news cycle is almost like marketing benefit for GameStop. Do you think more people are going to go to GameStop as a consequence of like all of like them being in the news this much?
Absolutely. The Reddit audience has purchasing power now. I mean, it's a young little snotheads.
Would you actually be like, hey, I should go to GameStop to buy my next game, as opposed to? Do you really think it's going to have that kind of power?
Well, like Jeff said, for the very short term, it's been called the first meme stock, which I think is going to really resonate with younger audiences. And I think it's going to be like a very funny thing for people to do and to post about in the short term. I think everyone's going to be like, haha, I bought something from the meme stock. And it's just going to be very goofy and funny. Long term, though, I mean, nothing about this screams long-term success.
I'm thinking we should launch an ETF or something, or a fund investing only in meme stocks.
Right. The audience is really predictable and not at all volatile. They're also very reasonable and rational. So you can't lose.
But Jeff is right, is that is like the person you are describing buying that stock is not a stable that is not somebody who is going to hold the stock potentially a year from now. I mean, speculatively, of course, they're not going to hold it a year from now. Like, if you're buying
hold
stock
it 3 days from now, William.
Yeah,
right. They're buying it because it's funny. They're not buying it to invest.
But the bigger question I have here, though, is just like, does this happen to other gaming stocks, right? Because the reality is, what we're observing here is people, I think this rise of the Robinhood investor is people people putting capital in businesses that affect their life and they value and recognize, right? That's really what's going on. And previously it was like, oh, put in my 401k, and those people decide and they do diversified holdings and it's all across the board. And it's not necessarily like, oh, I love Burger King, I'm going to put my money in Burger King, which is sort of what we're seeing now, right? And the thing is, gaming is such a resonant experience for people, right? It's so powerful. It's such an intimate connection in your life. And so many gaming companies are big and publicly listed, right? Mm-hmm. Like, do we think that this has potential to do we think that this has potential basically to affect or cascade across the industry? So going forward, it's next it's making this up, it's CD Projekt Red stock that spikes because
they've already picked the
released
next
really
ones,
good
William, on Reddit, to be honest, right?
So-
They're saying AMC.
So William,
they're
I
saying-
would say the answer is yes. Gaming stocks are popular because of Robinhood and because of like the Peter Lynch thing that you've mentioned a few times, like buy what you know. But I would say you mentioned at the outset, this isn't a gaming story. Like people on Robinhood are not, let's be clear, they're not buying GameStop because they're like, oh, I go to GameStop all the time. I have a great experience there. I love the product. I'm going to buy it. It's actually somewhat shrewd what they're doing. They bought this stock because I don't know if you realize the short interest on GameStop a couple weeks back was 140% of the float. So more than 100% of the shares outstanding had been sold short. Mathematically, I don't even know how from a market making perspective that's possible, but literally more shares than existed were sold short. Just think about that. So, that's why I think GameStop was targeted. And that's why you've seen, Paul just mentioned like AMC was up massively. They're basically targeting all these stocks that are short, in particular, this one hedge fund, Melvin Capital, that is just getting absolutely crushed, which is crazy because they, for the last 5 years, have probably been the best performing TMT hedge fund on the planet. But yeah, sorry, that was a long-winded answer. So I think the answer to your question, William, is yes, but not because of this phenomenon.
But that's also exactly right. Where I don't really think as much as we want this to be a gaming story, it's not a gaming story. It's a financial engineering story, right? It's just like, this is like what happens in markets where there's aggressive shorting. And this could as easily be, American Airlines or something in this position.
Yeah, I completely disagree there, William. This is not a financial engineering story at all, right? This is a social story. Like if you actually read the Reddit threads, and I actually I'm not going to show it because it's full of expletives, like it's full of curse words. But this was one of the most upvoted in the Wall Street Bets Reddit subreddit, and this guy ended his long-winded thing about why he's buying GameStop, right? With seriously, MF these people. I sincerely hope they suffer. We want to see the loss porn. Right? This is not sophisticated finance people realizing there's an arbitrage opportunity in the market and taking advantage of it. Like this is people trying to get back at what they perceive as billionaire hedge fund owners, right? And they want to make them lose money. This was the impetus behind all of this. To me, the great irony of this is for every one hedge fund that's maybe losing a bit of money on GameStop, there's 10 others that are making way more money than any of these Redditors on the volatility in the stock, right? Because they're more sophisticated, they have more information, they have better tools, they can trade faster, they can get in and out faster, right? They can do everything better than the Robinhood investor can do. Trust me, these guys, there's hedge funds that we're going to figure out in 2 weeks, a month, 2 months from now, will have made way more money than was ever lost on this. And this is the irony of this whole social cause here around trying to screw the hedge funds. They're only helping them, which to me is somewhat hilarious. William, sorry, I cut you off. I don't know what you were going to say.
Well, there's a great comment from Martin in the chat I would call out, actually, which I think is really true.
Greg says, hate to admit it, but it's a lot of crypto investors. I'll read it. Sorry, William. Greg, I mean, in some ways, buying GameStop right now was sort of like buying Bitcoin, right? Like, they're ignoring the underlying fundamentals completely. There
are people that fight you for that.
I know.
Hold on. Like I do take issue with that a little bit because there's all sorts of investment styles that ignore fund. Like there's momentum investing, right? Where like stocks that go up continue to go up, and so you can bet. Like we have practices in the investment community that aren't just looking at P&L statements and figuring out if the stock is priced fairly on a multiple. Now that's the most conventional way of doing it. But like, I do sort of think like this idea that like, yes, 100% stock should be connected to the value of a stock needs to be connected to the underlying financial performance of a company. But I also think this idea that stock prices today, that's all they are, when so much is bought up in like the totemism of owning stocks and the idea of having a stake and being an owner, and particularly what Robinhood is doing, marketing this idea of empowerment. Like, I do think it's worth calling out that I think culturally there's a value to stock ownership and things happening with stock ownership that are different from the, you know, the drive to make money, right?
But let me get a little bit
That's
meta
the kind
here.
of thing you hear right at the top of a bubble, unfortunately.
Hold on. I want Victoria to comment on this because I'm curious, which is I see a meta sort of play here, which is interesting, right? The reason why so many gamers and a gaming stock is involved here is because this kind of stock buying has turned into a game in and of itself, right? And so it attracts gamers, right? Like in some ways, this run up on GameStop is no different than in WoW when, you know, all of a sudden people tried to drive up the price of, I don't know, you know, like iron ingots or something, you know what I mean? Like it happens in gaming all the time. And I feel like gamers are attracted to this sort of, it's become a game, not anything based in finance, media, nothing. It's truly become a game. Victoria, I don't know if you see it any differently or if you see a different psychology around this.
Yeah, I mean, live by the sword, die by the sword. But I agree with a lot of points. There's a lot going on here. So there's so many different angles, and we've covered a lot of them so far. I mean, is it a gaming story? No. There is a lot of media here and a lot of learnings that we can take out of this that has nothing to do with gaming. On the other hand, the way that I see it is that would there have been the same amount of pushback if it were not in the gaming industry? So like you said, it could have been an airline, right? But would people have really pushed back, right? So that we don't know. I think there may be some sort of emotional tie to GameStop among this community who's looking to push back. I truly feel that. And that's why when we're talking about, well, what does this mean for GameStop? Is it a good thing? Jeff, like you said, I mean, of course, right? How could it be a bad thing? No one's upset about this. At the same time, I think those GameStop execs are just shaking at the knees right now, back into the corner. What is their next move? Media's waiting. What are they going to do with this lift? They've had this second chance at life. Are they going to respond, or are they just going to let it fizzle out and keep the attention on what's going on the financial side amongst the investors? I'm really interested to see if they make a move. Like you said, 6 months back, they brought on some new management. I don't know if this is going to start the fire. I'm kind of excited to find out.
Victoria, let me push you on this because you made a great point, and got me thinking. Like, I don't think we've heard from GameStop management at all, right? I don't think they've come out, they've issued any statement, any press release, nothing. If you're in their shoes, would you play this differently from a communications perspective right now?
No, I mean, I've been scouring the internet waiting for some sort of statement, something to be said. I think they're going to chill for a bit, see what's going on, and let a lot of people weigh in. I think they were probably caught by surprise, hence why they haven't made a statement yet. It'll come soon, but I think it's just in the heat right now. It's the heat of the moment. They just want to probably see a little bit more unfold. But again, that's me from an outside. I have no idea.
I'm sure every executive is probably scouring their contract, figuring out if they're allowed to sell, hiring legal counsel. Hey, can I sell my stock? Like, yeah, I mean, imagine you had like $1 million in GameStop stock. If you're an executive 2 weeks ago, you literally have like 50 million now or whatever. You're probably trying to figure out how to sell.
There's stress.
Would you have handled the communications piece here differently? I'm curious.
Somewhat, yes. Because this was an opportunity to connect with a giant online community of people who do have purchasing power. So I think like making some comment or some joke or giving that audience something to work with would have just sent people to their store like crazy on top of it. That being said, obviously you have to handle the financial backing, all that very delicately. So I do understand why they're staying more quiet, but I wish they would have just like cracked a joke. Like, oh, what a crazy day. Like, you could have been very neutral and made it funny.
Lindsay is a sucker. Lindsay's such a sucker for like these Twitter account, company Twitter accounts that are like off the wall a little bit.
Like post the eyeball memes or like.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm a sucker.
Yeah,
for
Lindsay,
things that work.
tell us again how you follow the Wendy's account for it.
I love the Wendy's
Like,
account.
Lindsay, what would Wendy's have done in this situation?
Wendy's would have been perfect. I don't know. They would have made some video of Wendy doing something, and it would have been very funny, and I would have loved it. No,
I really want you to write that book, like the Wendy's Twitter theory of investment management. It's just be like,
Martin says the nerve to claim Reddit is the one manipulating the market when there's 140% of total stocks shorted.
It's true.
Yeah,
it's not wrong.
Yeah, no.
How is what they're doing different than what Citron did? I mean, it's one thing Melvin didn't just, they didn't come out and trumpet, hey, we're short. But like this guy, Andrew Left at Citron, literally puts on a short and then puts out a whole presentation about why he's short.
Yeah, but they can't drive enough volume single-handedly to actually seriously manipulate the price.
These guys are, but my point is they're not doing anything different. Like this one guy on Reddit said, I bought a bunch of calls. Let's go buy this stock and screw these shorts. I don't know.
Yeah,
to me, that seems.
But if you had, if a hedge fund had the amount of capital that the whatever 10,000 Redditors had, right, and sort of pumped and dumped the stock in the way it's sort of happening, the SEC would be on their tail.
Implicitly, these Andrew Left doing the exact same thing because he's saying, you think when he puts out that short report, it's like, I'm just putting this out for edification. Like, I don't want anyone to follow my advice. I don't want anyone to sell the stock because they think I'm right. Of course, it's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. I mean, I think Martin's absolutely right. And I don't think I'm like, sorry, I was going to say like short selling is fine. Like, I'm not like, you need to be able to sell short to have an efficient market. Like I have no problem with short selling. It's good for price discovery. But what Andrew Left does in kind of these public shorts, I think it's market manipulation just as much as the Robinhood stuff or the Reddit.
Greg says it's a shit coin. Wall Street equals World of Warcraft market. Greg, closer than you think. Greg says they should do a secondary offering and raise some working capital. Yeah, I mean, and I think Jeff mentioned earlier paying down some of the substantial debt that the business has. I still don't know why they haven't closed more stores. Like more of the money losing stores is somewhat surprising to me.
The question who would buy their secondary? Like, how would you even do that? I guess there's ways to do like an at the market where you're just kind of selling it into the market, but like no institutional investor is going to buy here or anywhere near here.
It depends at what discount to the current market price,
like
right?
95%. Like, what are you going to do? Like, what are you going to do?
Gabe says what Reddit did is nothing different from what hedge funds is. Only difference is one has the title of hedge fund and the Reddit users are hitters. Yeah. I worry a little bit about the level of, I'll just put this out there, the level of unsophistication among many of the investors buying the stock, right? I think I worry for that. I think what ends up happening here is a lot of people who can't really afford to lose money end up losing more money than they thought they would, right? And that to me is sort of there's an unfortunate human toll that all of this is going to take, that in the exuberance here of stocks always go up kind of mentality is sort of lost on people. And there's not even like, I was watching Twitch today while I was doing some work, and all of a sudden the Twitch streamers talking about buying stocks, right? Like now it's just in the zeitgeist, everyone's talking about buying stocks. And I would say about 90% of what he said was just fundamentally categorically incorrect, right? Like clearly had no understanding of even the basics of how markets work and how stocks work, et cetera. And I'm a little bit scared when, there's a reason why they have things like accredited investors, and, you want to make sure people can lose money and still be okay. Like what scares me here is there's a real human toll, a human tragedy that's coming, and people just don't see it yet. And that to me is kind of sad. Martin says, cue the Apple Arcade call again. It's still a good idea. They still haven't listened, Martin. I don't know what to tell you. I think it's too late, to be honest, for that. Gabe says the stock will crash soon, and a lot of people are going to lose their life savings. Yeah, I don't know how many are going to lose their life savings, but people are going to lose money. It's inevitable, right? At some point, this thing goes down. Jeff says, great discussion. My 11-year-old daughter bought 2 shares of GameStop at approximately $10 each because she plays video games. Now she wants to sell 1 GameStop share with a 2,900% gain and start playing the market.
It's great.
I mean, look, I love people getting into finance. Can't complain about that. I would say, Jeff, and I'm sure it's not no news to you, as long as she's as educated on the bets she makes. Otherwise, it's just gambling. Like, who here thinks half the people on Reddit here, this is just like playing a casino game for them? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's so true that Robinhood, you mentioned, you asked it to Victoria earlier. You know, a lot of the aspects of Robinhood, they have sort of tried to bring in elements of mobile games to keep people engaged, where, you know, you buy a stock and there's like a thing that's
real time. You see your games, right?
It's become gamified to keep you engaged. And I'm sure they've hired developers from social casino games. Gaming is one of the best, you know, sadly, things out there at keeping people engaged, spending time, spending money, you know, with their phone in front of them. I'm sure Robinhood has hired plenty of people from the mobile gaming space.
I will just say the whole thing scares me. I was playing last night with a couple friends of mine, and one of them said he has $24 in his bank account, but he's going to buy one share of AMC because everyone on Reddit says that's going to be the next one, right? And I'm going, like, please do not do this. Like, it's not rational anymore. It's all just become a big game, which is, you know, in the context of talking about the business of gaming, GameStop's become a game. Just one last question for you guys on this. What, and if this came from a comment I read on Reddit, which was the guy or whoever made the comment, guy, girl, said he was against sort of what these Redditors were doing with the GameStop stock. And he basically said, I'll paraphrase, he said something like, instead of buying GameStop stock, right, if you truly love their business, go out and spend the money at GameStop. And I'm curious, like go buy a game at GameStop. Don't go buy the GameStop stock if you truly want to help the business. So here's the business question here. When GameStop's first quarter earnings get reported, do we think they will be substantially greater than Q1 last year or Q4 from last year? Or do we think that there's a little bit of hypocrisy here, that everyone's sort of saying, let's save GameStop, but no one's actually shopping there?
Yeah, I don't think the priority here is to save GameStop. I think it's legitimately a meme stock.
So you don't think the Q1 results will be substantially better than Q4?
Not substantially. I would expect a bump, but not like a huge, like we increased our customer, like we increased the number of customers in our store by tenfold. Like I think like a little bit more people will shop there because it's in the news and because it's funny, but I don't think that it'll like blow up anytime soon.
I agree. I'd say, yeah, it's going to be top of mind. So there might be a slight blip. It's going to be more in line with the pandemic and different restrictions, I think, if we do see any fluctuations. Yeah, I think this is just, they think by buying the stock that it's showing that they believe in the company. I don't think that they really understand how they would need to support the company if they truly wanted to see them survive. But hey, Elon Musk is tweeting about it. They're getting on board.
Yeah, I think Martin's absolutely right. I mean, you got new consoles here, so it's going to be impossible to disaggregate, you know, what is demand from this versus demand from that. Year over year, you have a really easy comp because, you know, last year you had people going into lockdown in this quarter. So, yeah, it's going to be up big, but no way because of this. But yeah, that's.
I mean, Jeff, one thing we talked about offline was Best Buy on a per square foot basis, right, significantly outsells GameStop, right? Does better in retail, physical brick and mortar retail than GameStop, like by a fairly large margin, right? So everyone's saying brick and mortar retail is dead, you know, and Amazon's killing everyone. Like Best Buy has done quite well, in fact, both online and offline, and GameStop has not. Is this telling in any way? Like, you know, obviously I'm continue to be bearish on GameStop's business, but you know, why are people ignoring sort of the comparison even to peers? I guess is my underlying question there.
Is that a question specific to me? Because
no, for anybody.
I don't know. I don't know the answer.
I was just going to chime in and say, I mean, they're not comparable in terms of the value they're offering. I think GameStop's full value proposition is that they offer that nostalgia. They offer the old games, the trade-in, the recycling mentality of like share it and play it again. And they do obviously have some direct competition in that space, but I wouldn't say that Best Buy is directly competing with them in that sense. Also, I mean, they're small retailers and malls. It's just a different clientele. Best Buy is always going to destroy them because a lot of the business they do is in used games. But
Best Buy like sells and finances appliances. So, I mean, you have one person spending $8,000 over Christmas versus at Best Buy versus whatever they're buying at GameStop. So it's not, there's a big difference in what they're offering.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know if these numbers are true, but I wouldn't be surprised if you even just extracted the gaming piece out of Best Buy's sort of business. They would still be significantly outperforming GameStop, again, both online and offline. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know if that's true, but I wouldn't be surprised. Greg says, interesting that Discord banned Wall Street Bets. That is interesting. Did they say why? Martin says a new console bump, not related to the story bump. Yeah, agreed. And Gabe says, Greg, it's interesting because the reason for the channel being banned was hate speech. I mean, if you read some of the Reddit posts, they are pretty inflammatory. Like some of them are not professional or gentle in any way. So maybe that was it. I don't know.
They said hateful and discriminatory content. So,
like 4chan found a Bloomberg terminal.
I heard that one. I heard that.
So what's everyone's guess? What's the peak? Where does this thing? We got to go around the room. Paul,
what is it at right now? I don't have it up. Hang on.
I think it was 350, but it might have been down.
What is the after hours down?
I think it was down. All the Reddit people had to go to sleep or something, you know.
Look, it feels like it's now under 300. It feels like we've peaked, in my opinion. I think, you know, there's maybe a psychological look. Clearly, there's some profit taking here, because it's down, 16% after hours. I will say, look, market cap's 24 billion. I don't think we ever see a GameStop above $500. Let's put a number there. What do you guys think, Jeff?
575. Total random guess. I literally just random guess. No, William? Nothing smart behind it.
No, I don't want to speculate on this one, guys.
It's just a game. What's the harm? All right, so you got the under.
Yeah, I'm with you, Paul. I think it's kind of, I would be surprised if it went above, or I would expect it to kind of cap out at like 400. I feel like the flavor of the day has already moved on.
I mean, I don't know. There's only so many Redditors, right? Like at some
They're
point.
already talking about the next one. Like it happened.
And Best Buy is actually on that list. I think they said Best Buy, BlackBerry, which like talk about buying the bottom of the barrel. Like, has anyone used a BlackBerry?
What was your?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I don't know about this one. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it has a good day and a half left in it, but I mean, I think the hype is hopefully done. I don't know.
Guys, let's move on. We've beat this one to death.
Wait, really quick. If you all are interested in like bad shorts with rabid communities, there is a documentary on Netflix about Bill Ackerman shorting Herbalife, and it's something.
That was interesting.
Bill Ackman, just to be clear, has the best performing hedge fund so far this year, and is making billions of dollars. He's perfectly fine, even though the Herbalife short didn't work. You're right; it is a fascinating documentary, though. I think it's something like Going to Zero or something like that. It's called. Yeah,
I don't remember, but it's good, and it's the Herbalife people. It's a fun social perspective documentary on what it means to sell Herbalife.
What were you going to say, William?
I would just like to say, like, just great. I think the chat, like, I really enjoyed the engagement from people, shouting things out to us and coming into the discussion. I just shout out to the listeners. Like, it's, I don't think we put every comment that pops up on the screen, but I will say, guys, it's so much more fun talking about this when you're engaging and talking with us so much. So, like, keep the comments coming because they're awesome and they make this much more fun and candidly easier to do. So, like, go.
Make a guess, William. What's your guess?
Okay, guys, let's move on. Let's talk about another big business here, Microsoft. Okay, Microsoft was in the news this week, probably not in the way they liked. Two stories. Let me give you the good one first. So the good one was Microsoft announced their quarterly results, and their gaming revenue grew 51%, which is for the quarter ended December 31st, 2020, which is massive. Obviously, the launch of their new console drove a lot of that. Hardware revenue grew 86%. Their Game Pass subscribers are now at 18 million. I think the last number I saw and we've been using was 15 million. So 3 million new Game Pass subscribers and 100 million monthly active users on Xbox Live. Keep that in mind. 100 million monthly actives on Xbox Live. The second story, though, on Microsoft here, completely related, was Microsoft reverses Xbox Live Gold price hike after backlash from gamers. The short of it is Xbox Live Gold service, which allows players to play online for the most part. I think that they also throw in some freebies and things. $5 a month usually, and they tried increasing it to 10. What I heard was really behind the scenes, what they were trying to do is push people to get on Xbox Game Pass, which is also $10. So by increasing the price of a lesser service like Xbox Live Gold to $10, people would say, what the hell? Let me go, sign up for Xbox Game Pass. But they got a huge amount of backlash. First question to you guys. Let me just back up to the start of this. Why do you guys think Microsoft was trying to sort of slip in this price increase at a time when their battle with Sony is definitely not won, and they're sort of in deep with Sony, right? Why go and increase prices on their Xbox Live Gold service in your mind?
Well, it's because they want to consolidate people. I mean, you literally said the reason, right? Like, I think they have a best-in-class product in Game Pass, right? I think they probably think that a lot of the people who are subscribing are using a similar service would be better served if they traded up. And I think they would rather move more volume through that service. And that service, my understanding, also has a lock-in effect for the user base, much more so than just online access, right? Because like it's a library of games that you're getting. So you often see this a lot with companies that have two classes of product and they want to try to that are similar, and they want to try to go to just one class of product, right? Is they try to make one class of product, the one they want to deprecate, less desirable, and the other class of product more desirable, and trust that the market will adjust themselves, right? I think what's interesting about this, though, is too, just like honestly, like the odd price sensitivity of gamers. Like you see this all the time. And I'm not saying like a $5 price hike isn't a big deal. For many people that can be a really big deal. But I am saying, like, in the vein of subscription services like Netflix, Disney Plus, right? Like $5 is very cheap. You know what I mean? Like most of the standard subscriptions that people are paying for today are in the $10 to $20 range. And it goes to show you that, like, I see this all the time in the gaming, like we're still anchored to that $60 retail price from like the 1990s. Like funny, yeah. Prices don't adjust easily in gaming, and I think the lesson for any gaming company is be careful with what price you go out at, because you tend to get stuck with it in this industry much more so than other industries, right? Like Netflix has raised their prices, like 4 times? And there's like not revolts against Netflix. They send you a little notification. They're like, it's up $2. And everyone's like, okay, more cat documentaries. Let's go.
It's literally at like $19 now. Like, I think that's the latest price increase.
It's unusual in gaming how much people will entrench around the established prices.
I will say to Martin's question here, does Game Pass include live? Martin, yes. And so Microsoft, in fact, I think in the messaging around the price hike, gave people an option to like upgrade their Xbox Live subscription to a Game Pass Ultimate subscription. So they did very much try and move people sort of up in pricing by offering sort of using the Game Pass offering. I'm curious, like my thought, maybe they just had so much confidence in Game Pass that everyone would be jumping at this chance. Lindsay, you were going to say something, or?
Yeah, you can't do a 100% price increase. Like you can't just double it and expect people not to notice. I mean, Netflix gets away with it because they're sneaky. They go from $4.99 to $5.99 and nobody says anything. Going from $5 to $10 is like, I mean, that's a huge jump. So they could have been a little bit sneakier about it, or say, add $5 on and get your Xbox Game Pass subscription, or done something to entice people, but just doubling the price wasn't going to work.
Do you guys think, Victoria, maybe to you, like, do you think there are psychological tiers in pricing here? Like $5 is like a tier, $10 is a whole different tier. Your expectations are completely different. Like, is there psychology behind this?
I mean, 100%. And back to William's point, I mean, the whole idea is if they do want to merge people or shift people over to the other service because it's going to benefit them in the long run, it's a better service, that's great. Doubling the price, first of all, doubling your price out of nowhere, that's huge. So obviously you want to de-emphasize the current service they're on, but the other part is you need to make the other place where you want them to go seem more admirable. And they didn't do that, right? The other one just stayed $10. There was no special promotion or feeling of like an exclusive offer where now I need to switch. There was no urgency. It was just making their current situation less comfortable. You know, it should have been like, for a limited time only, switch over and pay the same $5 a month, but get this much more. I think they just communicated it poorly.
That's actually like very smart. It should have been like, convert to Games Pass and you can keep your gold rate for the next 6 months. And people would be like, oh, sweet, 6 months of games. Like, let's do it. And then, you know, inertia, nobody goes back to gold. Everyone's like stuck in the new category.
Definitely.
Is everyone somewhat sort of like, we had a story, I can't remember if it was last week or 2 weeks ago, where Phil Spencer came out and said he wanted to change Game Pass sort of to be more like Google Stadia's business model. Then this price increase, like, it feels like there's some questionable decisions going on at Microsoft. Like, again, I come back to, maybe it's the pressure of sort of being on the losing end right now of the current console cycle, and they're trying to find ways. Like, look, the numbers are huge, the growth is huge, but Sony is still outselling them, right? And so is there pressure to make the services business that much more profitable? I'm curious if you think there's a big picture sort of thing going on here at Microsoft, because now there seems to be a pattern of these awkward decisions, for lack of a better word, maybe. Jeff, I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's always pressure, you know, particularly when you're running, you know, a multi-billion-dollar division within Microsoft. So, you know, that kind of comes with the territory. But I would say, like, your original point was probably accurate. I mean, the numbers are good, right? 18 million Game Pass subscribers, you know, revenue up 51% or whatever, hardware selling good, up 81%. So, yeah, you know, I wouldn't read too much into, you know, this price hike. I think William kind of hit it. William and Victoria hit it pretty immediately. Like, it's them trying to, you know, change incentives to change customer behavior. And yeah, when you prod someone to get them to do something, some people end up complaining, but like the large portion of people do what you prodded them to do. So I don't think there's like some deeper seated issue at Microsoft to read into here. At least that's from my perspective. I think it's just like, you know, some product managers, you know, making decisions to, you know, change things to.
So they've backtracked, right? And now, in fact, they've made Xbox Live Gold sort of even better. Like, they threw in extra as an apology. Do you think it becomes harder now for the business to move, for Microsoft to move customers from Xbox Live Gold to Xbox Game Pass now? Like, they shot themselves in the foot a little bit, or do we still see that transition happening soon, William?
The huge mistake they made here was not bundling this with Mixer. Like, that is the I couldn't resist. That was funnier in my head, okay? That was a lot funnier in my head.
But seriously, do you have an answer to my question?
Took me a solid 5 seconds to realize you were kidding.
Yeah, I didn't really get that.
Like, and then I was like, oh, okay, good.
Wait, no, I was so into my Mixer comment, which again sounded amazing in my mind. What was the question, Paul?
Now that they've backtracked and they made Xbox Live Gold a little bit better, right? Now is it harder to move customers off of Xbox Live Gold onto Game Pass, right? Which is where Microsoft clearly wants their customer base to be.
We just talked about this. Is like they tried to make one product worse so the other product would go better. Now they've made the other product better. So yes, it's harder to move people off, right? And also there'll be some sort of psychological effect, which is you've just fought to get your gold pass back where it was, you know, like you don't just then go, oh, good, but I don't really care about that. Sure. Like, so yeah, it's a challenge, you know, like I think, but again, it also highlights the power of subscription services. This is why they're so strong, right? Like people get locked into them, right? And that's both good and bad. Like great when you're collecting the money. It's bad when you want to try to move them to another subscription service, right? It's just a fundamental challenge of this type of business model. It doesn't rotate customers well. This isn't like, you know, buying the new Mario each year, right? Like it's not an incremental sales strategy.
Nick says, swing and a miss from the professor. Martin actually summarized, I think, it very well, this story. It's one of those good strategy, poor execution, and communication stories, Martin. 100% agree. And I think there's an underlying like business lesson here, which is you can have all the greatest plans and strategy in the world. If you don't execute on it well, you don't communicate it well, I mean, really, nothing else matters at the end of the day. Execution.
We seem to see a lot of that in the gaming space. Maybe it's just because gamers are like fickle creatures, but like it seems like that sentence could sum up like 40 stories a year. Like,
no,
yeah, good strategy, like bad. Yeah.
I think having now been in tech for 20 years, like you see, and I've seen sort of all the bubbles, not bubbles, but like all of the trends come and go, right? Clean tech, biotech, like you see the sort of these explosions, a lot of excitement, a lot of hype. And I think every time an industry gets to that level of hype, the way where gaming is right now, and I think where gaming will stay for the next little while, but yet the industry is immature. I think it's just you have people in there who are gamers, right? Who are building these businesses. Obviously not the case here with Microsoft, but gamers who are, you know, maybe inexperienced management or, you know, relatively unsophisticated, maybe haven't done this before, but are passionate about the industry. This is how you usually get these situations early on in industries where, you know, great ideas, maybe great strategy and great plans, but almost always the execution falls flat. I think as the industry matures, the numbers you're talking about, like 40 stories a year like this, will go down over time as, again, more and more sophisticated money and business people and all move into the industry. That I think goes down over time and sort of solves itself. But I agree. It's sort of a characteristic of early, exciting sectors. Let's do a little bit more lighthearted story here. This one was from 7-Eleven. I don't know if you guys saw this. This
like
was
the convenience store?
Yeah. So this is from TheVerge.com. The headline here is, "The 7-Eleven store got a gaming makeover and I want to spend the night." So there's a photo here of the 7-Eleven. You can see sort of the store in the back and this gaming sort of setup here. I will say, so I'll just describe it. It says, starting February 1st, residents who are 18 or older will have the chance to spend $11 for one night in the Utopia for gamers before it opens to the public. You actually have to book it on Airbnb. So 2 lucky guests will have access to the store, which has a futuristic gaming aesthetic and is truly #gaming room goals, big screen TV, comfy furniture, PS5, and an exclusive 1-hour streaming session on Twitch with FaZe Temper. They'll also have access to drinks, snacks, the Slurpee machine, all that stuff that comes with the 7-Eleven. What we talked about, sort of good ideas, bad ideas, activations, execution. What do you guys think of 7-Eleven moving into gaming with this kind of activation? And I know this is a little bit of a one-off, right? But is there a world where a convenience store that, in my mind, is all about quick serve, right? Getting people in and out quickly, building out a gaming sort of space where people can come in and play?
That's right. Isn't their business model built on like you go in and leave? Like that's like their entire strategy.
They literally have signs that are like no loitering.
No, but I actually, you know, this is one where I don't mind this actually, because what this is like there's probably a strong overlap between people who shop at GameStop and people who are gamers, right? You know what I mean? It's probably more
Meaning
the youth
7-Eleven.
demographic. Yeah, 7-Eleven. Sorry.
Although
Sorry.
GameStop should have built what 7-Eleven built, which is sort of sad.
Well, sorry, what I was saying is there's probably a strong overlap between people who shop at 7-Eleven, right? And then, people who are gamers. It's probably a much younger clientele, right? And, like the reality is this is just a PR cash in. It seems like there's no attempt to scale this. It's one store. It's like 2 people. It has even the Airbnb tie-in, for the hashtag Airbnb rental bonus. This is just a very simple, straightforward, hey, let's get a little bit of buzz around us in gaming. And I do think, GameStop has done promotions in the past. Sorry, 7-Eleven has done promotions in the past with like what I don't know why I'm like can't. I'm still stuck on our last story, but 7-Eleven has done promotions in the past and everything, around games and gaming. It's not like they haven't played in this space before. It resonates with their demographic. I think it's fine. I mean, it's not integrated into the store itself in a way that, is a really sustainable growth play, but sometimes you just want to get a little dip in the marketing PR pond. And I think this makes sense.
Does anyone think this makes sense rolling out to more 7-Elevens? Like retail suffering in general, right? Any retail suffering. And I think the way retail is sort of fighting back is they're saying we're going to build things that are more like experiences, right? That you can't get online. That's fundamentally sort of how I think retail is the only way they can really fight back, which is creating an experience in store that you can't get online. So does anyone think this is a good idea to roll out to, 1,000 7-Elevens?
For 7-Eleven, I do not, because that's not their clientele, right? Their clientele, like Victoria said, it's people come in quick. They see a 7-Eleven on the side of the road. They know they can get a Slurpee and a bag of chips really quickly. They're in, they're out. It's completely the antithesis of what a 7-Eleven customer is looking to do. They're not like, let me get a bag of chips and Doritos and spend like 45 minutes playing Fortnite. Just not the customer funnel.
Just real quick.
The reason why William kept saying GameStop potentially is because GameStop should be doing this. Because GameStop, their stores are in malls typically, place where there's foot traffic, ex-coronavirus. So people actually do want to go spend time there. There's a culture of like, hey, you can go in and talk to the associates. They know about gaming. You can have your little nostalgia, moment. And you can sit and play. You can participate in tournaments. Maybe you challenge someone that's sitting there too. You make a new friend. GameStop should be doing this with the money that they can raise from their stock being up so much. 7-Eleven, no. GameStop, yes.
Let me just lay some wisdom on the city folk in this room.
Okay.
The gas station / convenience store is one of the greatest places for people in rural areas to have activities. If you ever take a road trip across the country, you will see casinos, shoe stores, nail salons, all this stuff attached to the gas station. Okay. There is endless possibilities for what you can attach to a gas station.
Lindsay, please tell me you don't spend time hanging out at gas stations all the time. Please, just
when you live in the country, like it's an activity. I'm not even kidding.
This is a good point.
I'm sorry. Continue. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Hold on. I just want to make sure the point's clear here. You think for the 7-Elevens that are more in rural areas, this makes a ton of sense.
So much, because often, especially out west, especially where the mountains divide up everything and you can potentially drive 45 minutes to go to a grocery store. The gas station and convenience store is a lifeblood for a town. Not even kidding. That's where you buy the emergency milk and bread and eggs and whatever. That's where you get your gas. That's where, like, literally when I was growing up as a teenager, like we either hung out at like the convenience store or the McDonald's because there was no other options in my town.
So Lindsay, does gaming become a loss leader for those 7-Elevens? In other words, it's a draw to get people in the store so that they buy, they buy the Slurpee? Or do you think this could be an actual revenue generator for 7-Eleven going forward? Like charged by the hour or half hour, almost like ad hoc, mini land centers, right? Like where you convert, 7-Elevens to micro land centers. I don't know, whatever they want to call it.
Well, and this is where the whole broadband debate comes back in, because if there's a central hub where you can actually get a good connection, then yes. Because there is the reason why you see things like casinos and restaurants and nail salons attached to gas stations is because it's a central place where everyone can go to actually receive a service while they're doing other things. And when you live out in the country, that's extremely convenient. So things like even if 7-Eleven didn't even make it about gaming and just set up like a nice space where you could like plug in your own laptop and play something, I think you would be hugely successful. If you know anyone who's driven across country, they spend a lot of time in McDonald's and Starbucks and all that because of the free Wi-Fi. They could just add free Wi-Fi and like 3 arcade games, and I think it would absolutely take off with every single teenager living in rural America very quickly. And I think it would depend on like where you're actually putting these, but it could be a revenue generator or it could be ad hoc. I think that would depend like on location specific details, to be honest.
Greg says this should have been a Taco Bell. Greg, that's so specific. And Martin says, Lindsay, that's an insight I never would have thought of. Brilliant. Martin, she called us all city slickers. I don't know.
It's hard to imagine what people don't have when you live in a city and you have everything. But if you take one drive across the country, my favorite pastime was looking at what was attached to gas stations. It would have been great if gaming was one of those options.
Living in Manhattan, I always wonder who goes to any store when everything is delivered within the hour. But like,
so different.
All right, guys, let's move on. Let's talk about this is a recurring theme here, and I think we have to touch on it, and that is Activision Blizzard, because there was an announcement this week that I think, with all the excitement around GameStop, flew under the radar big time, and I think does have repercussions for their business long term. And this is from Yahoo Finance, and the headline is Blizzard absorbs Activision Studio after dismantling classic games team. And so what the story is fundamentally about is Activision Blizzard is essentially consolidating their control over Blizzard. Activision owns a studio called Vicarious Vision. They've made games like Crash Bandicoot, Tony Hawk, Skylanders. And what they're doing is they're taking the 200 people who work for Vicarious Visions and essentially handing all those people over to Blizzard. So all of the people at Vicarious Visions are now going to be working for Blizzard fundamentally. And look, I have a lot of theories on why they're doing this, but I'm curious why you guys think they're doing this and why you think they would have dismantled Vicarious and why they're putting it under Blizzard's umbrella. I'm curious, what conclusions do you guys come to here from a move like this?
My optimistic take, right, was, so it says Vicarious Visions had been working on the Diablo 2 remake, right? That was part of the article as well, right? Like, my optimistic take is these guys
they had been working with Blizzard already.
Yeah, they've been working with Blizzard. So they've been involved, right? My optimistic take is they're very they have passion. They've demonstrated passion for the Blizzard franchises like Diablo, right? Maybe they had a lot of good ideas that surfaced in the remake. That a remake is not necessarily a great place to be testing new things or building out new concepts. And maybe Activision Blizzard wants to be entrenching more in its major titles. And, 200 people, you don't just hire those overnight, right? And maybe this was a really serendipitous opportunity where they saw a way to take a team that was already working on a Blizzard project and convert them into more resources to turbocharge that Blizzard franchise and other Blizzard franchises. I think that certainly, makes sense for optimistically. I will say, maybe a little more pessimistically, like, I know there was a really phenomenal series of Crash games that came out recently. I don't think they lit the world on fire, right? Like, I don't think that, if you think of Bobby Kotick as the allocator of capital, I highly doubt, Crash Bandicoot 3 or 4 or whatever it was, did the same amount of revenue as, anything in the Diablo franchise ever, or anything in the Overwatch or Call of Duty or any, right? So it just sort of makes sense. Like, large companies use this all the time, SKU rationalization, right? They stop focusing on smaller SKUs and they move those resources over to larger SKUs. And I would argue there's an element of SKU rationalization here too. It's, hey, these people can be working on properties that earn $3 a head or $4 a head. Let's have them on the $4 a head property. And like I said, my optimistic take here is this isn't just that. It's that the team has worked well, has ideas, has demonstrated traction, and it's mutual. They now are excited about being folded in and helping and pushing forward another franchise that they've clearly cared about.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, these companies are both owned by, Activision Blizzard, the parent company. So it kind of makes sense to some extent. If they're working on Diablo 2, they should report up in through Blizzard, right? Like, why would it make any sense if they're working on Diablo 2 remastered to, on a monthly basis or weekly basis, be going to the head of Activision, I forget his name, Rob Kodish or whatever, saying, hey, Diablo 2 is going really well. Here's how far we are along. Like, we changed these scenes. We need this much more money. It would be like, well, that's not our franchise. Like, why would we, it just makes more sense for them to be talking to the Blizzard executives who can tie it in with what's going on with Diablo 4. I'm sure there's going to be some cross-marketing, cross-selling, products. Like, you have to think about these companies way more of like it's a living, breathing, or like actual people are going to work at a company, and like, they need to know who they're reporting to and who they actually, who they're getting their review from at the end of the year. Like, such simple things as that, where we're taking this sort of abstractly, like, oh, what does this mean for Activision Blizzard as a whole? Is Activision taking over Blizzard? Blah, blah, blah. It might just be as simple as like, it's easier to manage people under this structure versus the prior structure. Does that make sense?
It does. But there's like, I want to push a bit deeper here, which is like, why would Vicarious Visions have been working with Blizzard in the first place? Right? Is a question worth asking, right? Because Blizzard, you would think, should have no problem remaking their own game. Now, the Warcraft 3 remake, Reforged, was terrible, was a complete disaster, right? And so there is a situation here that's possible where Activision came down and said, look, you guys really messed up Warcraft 3 Reforged, so we don't really trust you on the Diablo 2 remake, so you better work with these guys, right? There's a situation here where it's potentially somewhat, there's some insight here that maybe Blizzard is struggling to deliver on everything they need to deliver on, and Activision is stepping in. But if Blizzard's not delivering, I think there's a bigger concern also, right? And I'll just add here, which is two things, which are Overwatch 2, rumored now significantly delayed, and that has implications for the company, for the owners of Overwatch League teams. I mean, this has major implications across the board. And also rumors that Diablo 4 significantly delayed. And so is there a bigger problem here where maybe Blizzard just can't deliver anymore on the slate of games that are on their plate, and Activision has to step in and say, look, we have these other development groups, you guys go help. And they do this with Call of Duty, right? This happened recently with Call of Duty. But you could argue that maybe destroys some of the heart and soul of Blizzard.
I think we have to be sensitive to, like, these are really great brands. You know what I mean? And so many people, it's not just like the only people who care about Diablo are the 2,000 people working at Blizzard today. Like, Diablo has millions of fans around the world who are super passionate about that game. So I think we have to be careful about being precious that, like, only like, it's very possible if they were working on a Diablo 2 remake, this studio had tons of hardcore Diablo fans there. You know what I mean? Like, it's, I'd say that, but I do think, let's look at the bright side here, which is, look, I love Diablo as a franchise. Love it. Absolutely love it. I've enjoyed every game, even Diablo 3, which had a rockier launch, right? Hearing more resources, and significant more resources, like 200 plus, are going to Blizzard, a company I love, to work on franchises I care about. That's only good news. Bluntly, like, I think it's difficult. And yes, you could spin it around, maybe rumored delays or something, but fundamentally, I read this as more people making Activision Blizzard games. That's confidence from Activision Blizzard in their slate of projects, right? And that's resourcing into opportunity. Those are good things.
Again, so we talked about GameStop stock in the context of Activision Blizzard stock. If you're holding or thinking of buying the stock, does this make you more or less worried? Again, because when you have the corporate sort of overlord allocating very much outside resources to projects that are delayed, troubled in some way, is this a good news story?
Well,
Or is it a bad news story? Right.
Get Martin's comment up. Martin has a really interesting comment, which is we have no way of knowing. Like Martin has an interesting theory. There's a huge MMO in the works. Get Martin's comment up. It's a great comment. Like there's a huge MMO in the works to compete with the Riot MMO. They need to dump resources in to go do it. And this is 200 people who can help. Like, of course, if this is World of Warcraft 2, like you should shut down Call of Duty and move those people over there, you know?
I will tease something for for those of you who have spent an hour with us. Coming in the next few weeks, we have a guest on the podcast who's from Riot, actually someone very high up at Riot. So we will be asking them about the Riot MMO. Just a little tease, that is coming.
And the
Cam
release
says,
date. We're going to ask them about the release.
Cam says, Vicarious Visions made some of the best Destiny 2 content ever. Wish Bungie would have bought them. Greg says they need more people to help with World of StarCraft. And Martin says a bunch of people moving to Blizzard to focus on a WoW sequel.
So
I guess
well, I just want to go back and answer your question because it didn't seem like you got around. Like, as a shareholder, would this make you happy or not?
Yeah.
The answer is, as a shareholder, you're not happy to hear that Overwatch 2 and Diablo 4 delayed. You're probably very unhappy about that. But this move, you're probably happy because for the longest time, really for probably the last 5 years, if not more, one of the big investor frustrations with Activision is that Blizzard has really not held their weight. If you think about it, outside of the Warcraft sort of every other year heartbeat, their last game was Overwatch in 2015. And the last one before that was, Diablo 3. And I deliberately skipped over Heroes of the Storm, William. But, Diablo 3 came out in 2012. I mean, that's when I graduated college. That was a long time ago. So they need to get, William, you said this a lot of times in the podcast very eloquently, the 7-year development cycle, like we saw with CD Projekt Cyberpunk, it doesn't work. You can't do it. It's too much. So the fact that we're going on almost a decade between Diablo games, it's just, they need to get it out. So the more resources they can throw, the better.
I would also point out another massive mark in Activision Blizzard's favor. They can do this. Wouldn't CD Projekt Red have loved to have had another studio over in New York that they could have pulled 200 more people onto the PS4, Xbox 360 versions of that? Like this is like one of the benefits of being part of a massive company like this is they can reallocate resources and spend into opportunity, So just yes or no. You're an Activision Blizzard shareholder. Are you happy about what you're seeing here?
I'm happy that the problem is getting fixed. I'm unhappy because there's a problem, but I'm happy that it seems to be I'm happier than I would be had I heard that these things were delayed and I didn't get the reaction of something's actually being done to fix it. Does that make sense?
Okay. Makes sense. Chris says if Diablo takes on Hades qualities, they can capture audiences outside of hardcore Collis clones. I mean, Diablo has a pretty big audience, Chris, but I agree. I mean, Hades was a massive success, and there's no reason why Blizzard can't put out an even better Diablo game. And Chris says, not Jeff, GTA does long production cycles. They're in the same league, allegedly.
Not in terms of sales. Maybe Take-Two, maybe Rockstar and Blizzard are in the same league, but neither of those franchises even sniffs GTA in terms of revenue and whatnot.
I think fundamentally the philosophies are different. Like again, when we had Strauss Zelnick on the podcast, they really do have a very art first, like story first, good game first kind of like mentality around development, and sort of like it takes as long as it takes kind of view on it. And I think that permeates everything they do. So they sort of survive the long cycles somehow. I don't think Activision Blizzard has the same luxury. I'm not sure why, but I feel like the gamer audience who loves Activision Blizzard is just more demanding in some ways.
And I would also argue, sorry to hog the airtime here, but the GTA is a little bit of a black swan in the sense that it's the exception, not the rule. Like I would say if you could ask Strauss Zelnick, in a dark room somewhere where no one else would know hear the answer, Red Dead Redemption probably took too long to make and cost too much money to make. Just doesn't have the online component. It clearly made money, but they would much rather have games out faster, I would imagine. X GTA 5, which is just a live service behemoth, but like Red Dead doesn't have that. So if the next GTA performs like the next Red Dead, the stock's getting cut more than 60%. It won't, but
Guys, I want to move on here to just our second last topic here. We're going to just do two more here quickly. This one's a quick one, and this is a news story. It's sort of, I love talking about news where gaming starts permeating other pieces, like other industries, because I think this is the eventual outcome. Gaming conquers all. And I love this story because the headline here is "From the Gaming World to the Office, VR at Work has become very real." And I just want your thoughts very quickly. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but it mentions, there's a little screenshot here. I will just summarize what this article is about. Basically, it's VR. It's a VR game, and it's being used by companies like PwC, where Barry is a character, and in VR, you need to fire Barry basically over and over and over again. So it's like, it's training people, in HR and dealing with, different situations with people. But they use VR to make it very real, right? Barry has reactions and things like that. And so PwC is using this as a training tool to train what they call soft skills. And specifically here, firing in the workplace. So I'm just curious what you guys think about VR ending up sort of in the hands of training tools like this, and if you think we're going to see more of this. Just your quick thoughts, comments, views on this. Victoria, maybe start with you.
Yeah, sure. Wow, that's crazy. So I mean, are they trying to destroy empathy or build empathy? What are they trying to do here? That poor guy. Yeah, I mean, so what was your question? Is it just general thoughts on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty unique. At our college, we have VR systems where we can send students to build their presentation skills. So they actually go up, they do a presentation, they do a speech. If they have too many filler words, it'll give you a score. Your enthusiasm, your speaking volume, your eye contact. Like if you start to lose the crowd, they'll start pulling out their phones or like talking. It's incredible. It's super interactive. The students get a kick out of it. You get a little nervous to try it at first, but then, we're hearing of a lot of people using it to practice their speeches, right? Even people in politics are using these systems. So it's pretty incredible. I think we're just at the beginning of of unlocking all the capabilities in this space, and I think it has a long way to go. But I think anytime we see these things come up into the news or we see bigger companies utilizing it, I think it's great.
Any thoughts on where this goes, Victoria? Like, is any limit to the ability in terms of the kind of skills you can train? Chris in chat mentioned surgery even.
Yeah. I don't know. I used to think there was limits, and then I just keep hearing. I mean, my job as an educator, probably not safe. Any machinery, pilots, anything like that can all be replaced. The one I heard a gentleman speak, and he was a writer, and I thought that I was going to be the last one to be replaced. And now articles are all done by computers, right? It just plugs in a few key buzzwords, and then it actually fabricates, the computer writes the article for you. So I don't know what those limits are right now. I mean, I'd like to say that you can't replace certain human emotion. I would be pretty pissed off if a VR system fired me. Like I know that we're not talking about being fired by a robot. It's about training so that you're better prepared. But I don't think that you can replicate that. I think that there's just too many curveballs in that interaction.
Lindsay, do you think firing virtual Barry makes you better at firing real Barry?
I would hope so. This is a really cool tool. It's great to see. We hear so much about military applications, and I love seeing this transition into other industries that aren't just the military, because as Victoria said, and as you've been saying forever, you can use these capabilities for almost anything. Soft skills are the one thing that are extremely hard to teach, because I mean, every social science researcher knows that if you ever want to induce stress in someone, you say, pretend you're public speaking. building those soft skills through this is a good way for people who aren't as extroverted to work on those. And I think that's really great. It also, I think I could see a lot of applications like teaching doctors bedside manner. In general, perhaps working on building empathy in people who it doesn't come naturally to, which could be really great in those peer-to-peer interactions that can't fully be replaced. It's really cool. But actually, my favorite thing that I learned about at PAX was using VR to help control symptoms of chemotherapy. I don't know if you were at that panel, Paul, but essentially spending time in a virtually very cold environment helped chemotherapy patients control things like hot flashes. They were seeing a reduction in those and things like that. So truly the possibilities are limitless. I mean, even physical symptoms, we can find ways for ADD, mental health disorders, all of that can be treated. I don't think that peer-to-peer interactions are going to be replaced fully, but I do think it's a good option for people who are nervous about peer-to-peer interactions too, to learn how to better do that. So yeah, this is great.
I mean, it speaks to the level of immersion that gaming has sort of achieved, gaming in VR, right? Where you can induce real, like Chris mentions, wait till I tell you about the compassionate AI people I'm working with. We're all getting fired. But like AI in my mind is just part of the equation, right? To your point, Lindsay, it's like, it's getting so immersive that now, firing virtual Barry feels like firing real Barry, right? Like in your brain, it all looks and feels the same. Cam says, love this in 2030. Could totally see on-hands training delivered in VR. And Martin says, simultaneously an exciting and terrifying time to be alive. I mean, it's interesting that we may all be training with virtual Barry. Guys, I just want to finish with this story, and obviously William and Jeff want just your quick comments. Again, I don't want to take too long with this, but just your quick comments, explanation for people watching on this specifically, because it was in the news and it involves people on this show. And that is Esports Entertainment Group finalizes binding agreement to acquire Helix Esports and GG Circuit. There was another article I will just bring up, which was the acquisition of ESL, EGL, sorry. So this from like 3 days ago. Just like literally 1 minute from you guys, just in terms of maybe Jeff, you want to talk to what EEG was sort of thinking here with these big acquisitions.
Well,
and why you would never buy Williams' company. I mean, that's just.
I'm just gonna say, I mean, we've kind of talked about the business rationale a number of times. I'm just super excited. I think it's going to be great to be working, with William and their company. I mean, I think it's truly, like, when I started at EEG, it was one of the first things that I sort of brought to our management team. Was like, look, we should go out and buy these guys, because I thought what they were building was so special in the industry, particularly combined with what we have on the gambling side. I think it creates like a really strong, diversified, kind of vertically, integrated enterprise. So that's like the business rationale. From a personal perspective, I'm just super psyched to be working with the team, William and everyone else, because they're great people and some of the smartest people in the industry. So, I mean, for me, I'm like over the moon, and glad we kind of got it done. It took forever. So yeah.
William, I don't know if you had any thoughts, but I will say that, like, before you jump in, as a third party sort of viewer here, I think these are some of the smartest acquisitions EEG could be making. The strategy makes total sense for anyone following the story. I've said it on the podcast, but now you're sort of seeing the strategy unfold, and now these acquisitions being made public, I think it gets even more exciting. Sorry, William, what were you going to say?
No. I just, by the way, I like, what are your thoughts? But before you jump in,
I wanted to butter you up a bit before,
Oh, well, I just think, I mean, it's always difficult to talk about, yourself, right? I like to talk, I think, but in this case, I just think it's a pleasure to work with Jeff and the team. And I think we're incredibly excited. I'm so excited. I wake up in the morning with like a ton of enthusiasm, a ton of verve, excited to open my email and see what's coming, because I think there's a lot of opportunity, in front of us right now. So yeah, it's really, really lovely. And I do think it says, again, like, for people who watch the podcast or the live stream, like, it's not just Jeff and I, it's, everybody here is actually involved in the business of esports. And I think that's one of the reasons why this podcast and live stream are special, is it's not like we're in the industry, you know, and we have opinions based on what we're doing in the industry, whether it's investing, teaching, you know, what have you. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've been so successful. And I think it's partly what makes our comments so hopefully valuable, or at least, you know, not idiotic when people listen.
Chris says the man who wrote a book. Go Oxygen Esports. There you go. All right, guys. I want to wrap things up here. As always, we have to do this. Okay, we have to. No one's getting away with this anymore. I forget to do it some weeks. What are we playing this week? Lindsay, let's start with you. Because I know you. I saw the post. I saw it.
Yes, I surprised bought my husband a Nintendo Switch, but really I got it for both of us. I haven't actually had time to play anything yet, but I did. No. Wait. I pre-ordered a game and I don't remember what it's called, but it's about a panda and I'm gonna use it to find my zen. It's like a peaceful panda. So when that comes out,
so no Mario, no like none of those, no Zelda.
No,
peaceful panda.
I pre-ordered a game and I don't know what it is.
But I swear I'll come back with a name and a review all in one. It's gonna be great.
Lindsay, how funny is it that I had a story potentially queued up for this week had we had the time, talking about how Indiegogo had like $23 million or Kickstarter raised indie game companies raised $23 million on Kickstarter. So I have a funny feeling it's a lot of like, I pre-ordered this game, but I forget what it is.
Yeah, I play Animal Crossing when I can, you know, learn to be a peaceful panda.
Victoria, what were you playing this week?
I played a lot of cards this week, which was really cool. But gaming, I downloaded. I started playing Dadish 2.
Dadish?
You guys heard of it?
No.
Oh God. Okay. Here's the launch. So Dadish, it's a mobile game, and it's a radish dad who has lost all of his children, and it's a glorified Mario, but it's punny. It's really quirky. There's really short little levels. You don't lose your anyways.
I love
it. It's
it.
great. Yeah.
It's
a radish.
Like the vegetable?
Yeah, download it. Give it a try. It's called Dadish 2.
Jeff,
this feels right up William's alley.
Feels like something I would definitely enjoy.
Yeah, I'm actually interested. I'm like gonna download.
Okay,
this.
download it. It's actually you catch on pretty quick too. The controls are pretty good. The bad people in it are like ice cream cones and hamburgers, and you're the good guy. You're like the radish, and each level you have to find your kid because you're collecting all of your kids because they all got lost. Give it a try.
And right it's Dadish 2?
Dadish 2, yeah, there's a sequel.
There's a sequel already.
Is there a Dadish 1? That's the obvious question.
Yeah.
Oh, I was hoping they were bold and just started with number 2. Like they were just
Star Wars style, you know?
Exactly. That works. Nope. Learn from George Lucas.
There you go. William, what were you playing?
You know, this is a hard one for me because I took some suggestions from our listeners based on how much I liked Ghost Runner. Okay. And they suggested that I play Mirror's Edge Catalyst because I had played and enjoyed the original Mirror's Edge, but I had never actually played the sequel Catalyst because at the time that it had come out, I think the reviews had been a bit iffy. And I have been playing it, and I have to tell you, I'm really disappointed. Like, it's not a bad game, but it adds... It like highlights everything Ghost Runner does well for me, because Mirror's Edge Catalyst takes Mirror's Edge and adds a whole bunch of stuff to it that the game doesn't need, like melee combat. This is a game about running fast and parkour. We did not need melee combat, fetch quests, and lots of story. It's a game about running quickly. I just want to run quickly. Let me run on walls. No story. Stop. Like, and it really shows, like Ghost Runner, there's a lot of story, but it's built into the traversal mechanisms. So like you're always moving. Like the thrill of the game is speed. So I maybe it'll turn out to be better. It's certainly parts of it are very well made. DICE is an incredible studio, but right now I'm a little lukewarm.
Jeff?
I did not play anything, but I did get invited to Clubhouse by Paul, so that's like sort of cool. I think
Friday, 3 p.m. Future of
apparently,
Fun Friday.
yeah, it's very exclusive. Apparently, Paul used Paul has like 5 invites, and he was one of them on me. So that really touched my heart. That meant a lot because those are valuable, I think. Although I was using it and I have no idea what it's for yet. It's just weird. But we're gonna like take it over. No, I don't even. It's just bizarre. But people take it seriously, so I'm excited to see. What's cool about it is that there's interaction from everyone, right? So if theoretically we were doing this live stream in Clubhouse, Cam and Martin and Chris and all the guys can be, talking as well, which would be cool in addition to just typing. I think
Victoria and Lindsay, I'm going to put you on the spot based on Jeff's comment here. I still have enough invites. Are you guys going to get on Clubhouse for Future of Fun Fridays?
Yeah. It replaces the water cooler talk.
There you go. Lindsay, what were you saying?
I said only if you change that name.
Why?
Future of Fun Fridays?
Yeah.
It joins to FOF.
It works. I like the alliteration. Martin says chess, Hades, and Valorant chess blowing up still.
Lindsay, you're out.
Stopping it. She needs to get an iPhone.
I mean, yeah. Lindsay's just.
Listen, I've been invited to Clubhouse. Okay.
I didn't realize they had Clubhouse in whatever, the Midwest with you get that at the gas station?
They all go down to the 7-Eleven and it's IRL Clubhouse.
All knows. Last time it was a fish hatchery in Montana.
Pandas, let's start talking to therapists. And Cam says, excited for the future of EEG. Greg says, how do you get invited on Clubhouse? Greg, you just asked someone who still has invites left. I think they're only on iPhone. Lindsay told me. I didn't know that, but they're only on iPhone right now. And Chris does have invites, so hit him up. And Cam says, I'd be in. Well, Cam, you can show up on Friday. We're going to do it Friday at 3 p.m., see how it goes. I have no idea how it's going to go. But will be exciting to chat live with anyone who drops in. So on that note, guys, thank you everyone for coming. Just a reminder again, please stay tuned for this week's podcast. It's going to be a really, really great episode. These are incredible guests that we are very lucky to have on, and the conversation with the Logitech guys should be amazing. So stay tuned for that. As always, thank you for participating in this live stream. Stay tuned for my Monday, minutes that I do, my Business of Esports minute. Make sure to go buy some stuff on the Business of Esports shop. Thank you guys. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, William. Thank you, Jeff. You guys are awesome. This has just become so much fun with the big cast, and I hope you guys all agree, everyone who's in here. And as always, we do this live stream every Wednesday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. And we will see you guys next week.